1 solid hour of in-depth analysis of the machinery that makes our country tick. The Edge, cutting into the matters at hand.
Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis, and welcome to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius, and thank you for joining me on the program for today, Thursday, January 16th, 2025. It's just 11:02 a.m., and thank you for joining. This program is also being carried live on ZIZ Channel 5, as well as our social media platforms. Check us out on Facebook at ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation and via our YouTube channel at ZIZ Online. The numbers to call when we open the phone lines are 465-6120, 465-1903, 662-8674, or 718-577-2916. Those are the numbers to call to participate in the conversation for today. Let me begin by extending birthday greetings to those of you who are celebrating today or during the course of the week. And I pray that you live to see many, many more. Also, I would like to extend deepest condolences to those who are mourning the loss of a loved one, and I pray that you find comfort in the fond memories that you shared. Welcome to The Edge, and again, thank you so much for joining the discussion. I came back on Tuesday of this week after a short hiatus for the Christmas Carnival season, and as I said, it's good to be back to engage with you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, on the biggest stories happening in governance today, things happening in St. Kitts and Nevis or across the region that is related to St. Kitts and Nevis, or something that that we find particularly interesting. That would be a good topic of discussion. Today I want to engage you on something that came out of the round table discussion with the Prime Minister recently, and it was in response to a question that I posed to the Prime Minister as it relates to the fair share agreement between St. Kitts and Nevis. And we know fair share has been a conversation that has been going on for many years, but in the last decade the conversation has been heightened. It has been fueled or increased, for lack of a better term. We have more and more people talking about it. We would recall the elections of 2015, the general elections of 2015, or federal elections, where that was a major talking point, where politicians and the platforms are saying, well, you know, we're going to work out the fair share agreement between St. Kitts and Nevis, as we believe that resources should be shared fairly between both islands equitably between both islands. And it's a conversation that started before it was increased at that time, and it has continued. Unfortunately, it is a conversation that gets people emotional, that gets people riled up. And I'm saying this based off of what I've seen, what I've heard, where when you talk about fair share, there are going to be those who will say, well, of course, in any conversation that you're having, you're going to have people who are for and people who are against. And that's absolutely fine. That is how you have meaningful dialogue and meaningful conversation, where everybody come together and give their take as to how they believe. But the fair share argument has long been, or the fair share conversation, let me say that, has long been a conversation in St. Kitts and Nevis. And it's a conversation that I like to approach holistically. I like to approach it with an open mind and looking at all possible angles and try as much as possible to be reasonable. Now, it says that the government is working to, or they're making efforts, or advancing efforts rather, to establish a fair share agreement between the two islands, enlisting the expertise of the World Bank. And this was revealed in a recent interview with Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, where he said that the administration is committed to fostering fairness, and this includes transparency and collaboration between St. Kitts and Nevis. He added that an independent body will provide the objectivity and credibility required to develop an agreement that reflects the best interests of all citizens, ensuring a sustainable and equitable framework for generations to come. He highlighted the issue of revenue distribution, particularly concerning non-taxable revenue from the Citizenship by Investment program, and he spoke about the framework on the development, or the framework on the development, will address the challenges while aligning with constitutional provisions and strengthening the relationship between both islands. The Prime Minister also noted that the federal government continues to provide robust support to Nevis through essential services and direct financial contributions, and these include funding for national security, which falls under the responsibility of the federal government, or the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, ports, airports, and the fire services, as well as monthly budgetary support. The Prime Minister said that the World Bank, or he underscored that having the World Bank facilitate the process adds value by ensuring impartiality and adherence to international best practices. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll dive into this conversation, and let's make it as interactive as we can. I want to hear from you, your views, thoughts, and opinions on this. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Whether it's a dress store on 4th Street, a snacker in Kayon, or a village grocery in St. Paul's, our small businesses play an important role in our economy. By supporting these businesses, you are helping to create or keep a job or two and to revive our economy. Support our local small businesses. Buy local and keep the doors to our small businesses open. This message is brought to you by ZIZ in support of our small businesses across the Federation. This message is for every business owner in St. Kitts and Nevis. Jumpstart your business and set yourself apart from your competitors with an advertising solution from ZIZ Radio, ZIZ Television, or Big Wave. The Advertising Solutions Department at ZIZ prides itself on providing client-focused advertising solutions that make sense for all local businesses. Don't use the excuse that you can't afford to advertise. Call us at 465-2621. We will sit with you, discover your needs, and design a solution that fits your budget. Advertising works, and with ZIZ, it works even better for your business.
Hello and welcome back to The Edge in ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm Devonne Cornelius and thank you for joining me in the program for today, Thursday, January 16th, 2025. It's 11:11. That signals good luck, I believe. It's 11:11. And thank you for joining me on the program for today. The phone lines will be open shortly, where I'd like to engage with you, the listeners, on this topic. But if I could quickly provide some context, some more details on this conversation of fee issues. So the fee issue agreement between St. Kitts and Nevis is, I would say, an important topic that touches how the revenue generated by the Federation is shared between the two islands. And the issue has been a point of contention in the past, as I mentioned, where debates about the distribution of resources, particularly the CBI program, has generated significant non-taxable revenue for the Federation. Now, in terms of the historical context, so as we know, St. Kitts and Nevis became an independent nation in 1983, forming the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and the constitutional arrangement established a balance of power between the two islands, with the federal government responsible for certain national matters, and Nevis had authority over certain affairs. So the dual governance structure, where there's a government of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Nevis Island Administration, this dual governance structure has led to periodic tensions over how national resources should be distributed, and not just at the governmental level, but at the citizenry level, where people would give their take on how they believe revenue should be shared between St. Kitts and Nevis. So the relationship between both islands has often been marked by a desire for fairness in governance and resource sharing. Nevis, which is the smaller, has raised concerns about equitable treatment in terms of economic benefits, financial support, and representation. And over time, issues related to revenue sharing, particularly in the context of the CBA program and other economic resources, have contributed to calls for a more transparent and fair agreement. Where we would remember the Charlestown Accord, I believe, which was drafted in 2013-2014, when leading up to the 2015 elections, where the leaders of Team Unity sat down and said, well, we're going to do this, but that was never concretized. It was never something that any one of them had any legal binding to. It was just an agreement between these three parties or three bodies, but it was never something that was concretized, and so it was just there. And I don't believe any one of them ever took it very seriously, which is quite unfortunate. In terms of the constitutional framework, so the Constitution provides the legal framework for governance and revenue distribution. So the federal government is responsible for certain aspects of national revenue collection and spending, while the islands of St. Kitts and Nevis are entitled to share in the financial benefits generated from federal activities, or in particular Nevis. So historically, the issue has centered on the fairness of the distribution, while some argument that Nevis is not receiving a fair share of the resources generated by the Federation. Now, the current administration, Dr. Drew, has recognized that there's a need for fair share agreement between the two islands. And as I mentioned earlier, this agreement is being developed with the support of an independent body facilitated by the World Bank. And this is to ensure, as the Prime Minister has noted, an impartial approach to resolving the dispute. And the goal is to create a sustainable framework that considers both taxable and non-taxable revenue sources and aligns with the constitutional developments. So we've highlighted historical tensions. The crux of the issue is the CBI program, constitutional provisions, fair share agreement, international involvement, and now what is currently happening. So Dr. Drew has said that the engagement of the body will provide credibility and objectivity in the development of the fair share agreement, and the World Bank involvement is meant to ensure adherence to international best practices and resolve the long-standing issues surrounding revenue distribution. But I want to hear from you, the listeners of the program, your take on fair share between St. Kitts and Nevis. I know this is not a new conversation that I'm bringing to the table, in the sense that it is one that has been ongoing for quite some time, and at times people can get emotional about it, get people riled up, and that's what the politicians have been doing, getting Kittitians and divisions riled up over this fair share thing, and then they drop off and you never hear anything about it until the next election cycle or something like that. But it is definitely something that is serious, that needs serious attention, and it's not that anybody is trying to take anything from any one entity, but it is something that should be taken very seriously. And it's good to see that some work is being put in to work out that arrangement. So we'll open the phone lines now and begin taking your calls at 465-6120 or 1903. The cell number is 662-8674, and our overseas line is 718-577-2916. We'll take our first call for the morning. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Devonne, good morning.
Yes, how are you doing today? Good morning.
I'm fine, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, man, same to you.
And the family, and the good people that think it's Nevis. Devonne, poor people ain't gonna leave out of this, you know. And we want fair share from Bastille over to Charlestown. See? I ain't trusting the man who in charge, because he's a lawyer. I don't know he long time. From the days of Louis Farrakhan, when me and he and the Wally and other young Rastaman around Bastille used to be pushing journals for Louis Farrakhan. I don't know who he be. He trying to distance himself from people. We don't know we go, man. Devon, we want he to just don't talk the talk. Go over and meet the opposition and let them know you will honor the fair share. We don't want to talk. This is 2025. We colonize. As culture said, we don't pray for you. We, the poor people in St. Kitts Nevis, can pray for you. Don't plan to do the right thing. I feel I could give a St. Kitts to all kind of white people. We watching it up, and it's my last day. Have a good day, Jam. This is Jam Down.
All right, Jam Down, you have a good day. Thank you for your call. The phone lines remain open, and we're taking your calls. Let's take this one. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Mr. Cornelius, good morning. How are you?
I am doing well, and you?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for asking. I love the subject matter this morning of discussion. However, let me make sure I could at least explain it to you, somewhat give a definitive what I believe should be understood. You and I are brothers living in the same home, are fed by the same parent, from the same pot and the same table, the steps we sit on once before to go in the house, we sit on that to eat. We'll be shared food equally. It all depends on the age of the child, how much I can eat because I'm smaller than you are, bigger than me. That's understood.
Right.
But what percentage of our revenue income is fair share to our sister island, Nevis? That's the question I am asking.
Repeat that question, sorry?
What is the percentage of our revenue income should be given to Nevis, our sister island? You have a good day, and thank you for listening. That's the question. Goodbye.
All right, caller. Thank you so much for your question. Do we have any more callers on the line? Okay, 465-6120 or 1903. What percentage of our revenue should be given to the sister island of Nevis? I'll be honest with you, caller. That's not a question that I am equipped to answer. And I'll explain why. You just gave the analogy that if my brother and I live with our parents, I'm 5 years old and my brother is 25 years old, and mommy decides today she's going to cook some dumpling soup with cassava dumpling, chances are I'm going to get half a dumpling because I small, I can't try a whole dumpling. But my brother who's 25 might get 3 dumplings. You know, so it depends on... There are a number of factors to consider. There are a number of factors to consider, and I think that is what the role of the World Bank is, the independent body. They are going to be the ones, of course, with guidance from local experts in St. Kitts and Nevis. They are going to be the ones who are going to sit down and work out what that framework or what that percentage should look like. So if we have 100, let's start at 100, 75 for St. Kitts, and the remainder goes to Nevis, or 60 for St. Kitts, and the remainder goes to Nevis. But in terms of a specific number, I can't give you that number, but there are factors to consider, as I gave in the example. Your age, your size, and different factors. The phone lines remain open, and we're taking your calls at 465-6120 or 465-1903. Cell number is 662-8674. Let's head back to the phone lines and we'll take this call. A caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Cornelius, and a good day to you. Yes, on the issue of fair share, you know, fair, of course, does not mean equal. And fear also has a lot to do with people's perception of what is fair. And so this whole discussion is quite interesting. No matter what persons hear, they will have a different view if, according to them, it's not fair. And of course, we have heard that, well, there are certain things that we know. That is that there is no St. Kitts separate from Nevis.
Right.
There's a St. Kitts Nevis with the federal, and there's Nevis as a separate allied administration. So it's a matter of 2% go for St. Kitts, and it doesn't go like that. The federal government also deals with things with a federal, and you outline them.
Right.
Things like your defense, your seaports, airports, and what have you. And so that has to come from the kitty. Before anything goes to either St. Kitts or Nevis, that goes to the kitty. Another thing, Nevis has the right under this unique federal constitution to raise its own funds. So that's another issue there. So you have to take that into account. And it's interesting that different administrations have come in, and this whole issue has gone back and forth. We recall years ago under the Dr. Simmons administration, there was an issue which dealt with the issue of the particular hotel in Nevis, because the tax revenues were supposed to be distributed a certain way, and when it came now that Nevis was getting more, the Nevis leadership said, no way, we are holding on to this. So it did not go into the kitty as it should have done. And then moving forward, just recently, the last administration, it said, well, to really do this fair share properly, let us give it to an independent body, a world body, IMF, World Bank. You heard people say, well, even a sixth former could add up 1 and add up 2 and what have you, because that's how they think. Right, so it was put into there. This new administration came in, and it is following the same process, because it is saying it must be done by an independent body, and let us see how it works out. But you hear the conversation, well, why do you need that independent body? Just add up 1 and add up 2. It doesn't work that way. And you have to take all of these elements into account. Nevis has its own administration to raise funds, which St. Kitts does not have. You have to take into account the fact that the federal government, of which St. Kitts is part, it has to deal with other expenses. All of these will have to be put into the equation, or the process to really determine this fair share. And then the Constitution dealt with the tax revenue, not the non-tax revenue. It did not foresee at the time that you will have this CBI program. So now it has come in all the more reason, because this has been now an element of revenue or income to the country, that you have to treat it in a different way. And so let us have the independent body deal with that and come up with a prescription, and we'll see what follows. So I'm waiting for that. Thank you.
Carla, thank you so much for your contribution to the program. You made the point, and you are so correct when you said the Constitution does not recognize the island of St. Kitts. It recognizes the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis, or St. Kitts and Nevis, and then it recognizes the island of Nevis. So when you spoke about the arrangement or what the allocation should look like, let's just say the World Bank arrives at 60% for St. Kitts, or 60% for the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and 40% for the Nevis Island administration. It simply means that out of that 60% for the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, Nevis would be getting something out of the 60%. So Nevis would have that 40%, and the Nevis Island administration, or Nevis, would still legally tap into that 60% under the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, because constitutionally or legally that is how it would have to be, because there are certain things that the federal government has responsibility for on the island of Nevis. So it sounds simple on the surface, but it involves a lot of loopholes. Let me say that. A lot of things have to be combed through and dissected and explained in detail before you jump into it. But you're so right, Carla, that St. Kitts is not recognized in our Constitution. It is the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and the Nevis Island administration. And so when you're talking about fair share, you have to factor in that while Nevis would have that power to get whatever percentage and keep that percentage for themselves, one must bear in mind that whatever is allocated for the government of St. Kitts and Nevis or the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, some of that still has to be put towards federal efforts. We have a call on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning. Happy New Year.
Same to you. Happy New Year.
How are you?
I am doing well. What about you?
Why are you giving all thanks and listening to this? Let me turn down the radio, eh?
Yes, please.
Have it on tuning. Now, there's all of this talk that's going on. All it means, they do not want to give Nevis a share. This thing about sharing has been going on. I mean, I work in the planning unit and the Ministry of Finance. It does not even require you to pass the actual money. It's an accounting exercise. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about turnover Nevis one, it doesn't go so. If you look through the government expenditure, there are certain expenditures that are carried out by the federal government, and there are certain expenditure that Nevis carry out. Because you would know, like the fire station, a lot of the things that Nevis does is not their responsibility, you know.
Right.
So what they would do, or what used to happen, because just since you get money, you get greedy, they would add up. You would have we add the two things together. You get the Nevis account, the St. Kitts account. The articles like fees you pay to organization and things like that, right? They will work over a proportion of the national security is for Nevis. And they charge it to the Nevis account. But what has happened is just greed and old-time politics. No matter how you turn it, St. Kitts does not want to give Nevis what is due to it. There's no getting around it. All this hullabaloo. They have the Constitution give the ratio, you know. You aware of that?
If the Constitution does what, sorry?
Gives the ratio at which the sharing must go on.
Yeah, but I'm forgetting the actual amount. But yes, I've read that.
It's in there. All you have to do what you usually do. Share up the joint expenses for the embassies and whatever. And when it comes down to the CBI funds, all this thing about, the expenses of the fund, that had nothing really to do with the fees, you know. It is the people out there who get clients and so. And if you were to take a look at the SIDF accounts, the only thing, sometimes the government keeps the currency to make sure your identity is correct. The government, the SIDF, is to transfer money to the Sankis government. It's in the accounts as a budgetary support. The Nevis wasn't getting any. I want you to check them for yourself. Because a lot of what is being said is just that the Sankis government, by habit, wants to control what goes on in Nevis. And they're being dishonest. You're going to tell me you get... And then this, you remember with Dr. Harris, or the World Bank and the World Bank, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember he mentioned the World Bank.
So the World Bank already has the information. So doctors, you come in, the World Bank. That is pure deception by all of them. It's just this kind of mentality that Nevis must always be dependent on St. Kitts. And this issue about, and the VAT. Anybody with any kind of economic accounting sense knows that a lot of the VAT Nevis is paid into St. Kitts. Are you aware of that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware?
Yes, Carl. I'm listening to you, yes.
They come down here in the shop. A lot of the companies, TDC have TDC Nevis as a separate company. Nearly all the other ones, bank, everybody, pay their company tax in St. Kitts. And I used to work on them. Nevis have been treated unfair.
All right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right, Colin.
This is not a lame excuse.
We want to take some.
Nevis this year.
Yeah, we want to take some more calls. So thank you so much for your contribution to the program. It's 11:34. You have a caller? Let's take this one. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Mr. Cornelius, I heard Miss Henry said just something a while ago, and I'm very much interested. Is it true what she said based on the procedure, another word of describing the standard of the ratio in which money should be given to Nevis as a fair share? Is that correct?
If it's what?
Is it true? She said just a while ago, she used a word, which of course I understand, a ratio. A ratio is given by a word, that word to describe what procedure, according to standards, that thing's supposed to be done. Is it true what she said, that ratio is governed by whatever standard are used and procedure for Nevis to be getting a certain amount of money as a fair share? Is that correct?
I think it would be best for Ms. Evans to call back in and clarify that. But if I understand clearly what you're saying, there is a guide.
It's a guide.
There is a guide for
and
how...
that guide, according to what she said, is currently true because it's a standard that is placed here.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
But I think I heard you say you read whatever she's get that from that she was speaking about. Didn't you say that just now?
Did I say what?
I think I heard you said you read it. What she said, you read it.
Yes, I've read it, but I don't recall what the actual numbers are. But I have read it. Hence the reason why I said there is a guide. But I don't recall what the actual numbers are.
I accept what you say. You don't understand the actual number. But whatever you may have read, it could be the truth about what she said. She just highlighted. Chances are you may not fully understood. Because if you read something, I am certain, if I read this color is black and that color is red, I know what I am saying because I read it. And if you read whatever the Constitution said about that formula that is standard, I don't see why you would have told me when I asked you the question earlier, you don't know. If you read something, you must have known. One of the reasons why we all went to school to learn is because we listen. And if you spoke of something that you read, you would have heard likewise go to school to listen and learn.
You've misunderstood me, caller.
I beg your pardon?
You've misunderstood me.
No, I misunderstand you.
Yeah,
no,
you have.
I misunderstand you.
You have.
I misunderstand you.
You have.
I'm saying indirectly what you said, Mr. Henry said and highlight and clearly explain. That's what I'm saying, Mr. Cornelius. I'm not misunderstanding you.
You have.
If I misunderstand you, I wouldn't be explaining to you what I heard you said. I'm not understanding you at all.
Okay.
But you take care, so you have a good day. Goodbye.
Right, but I'm telling you that you have. I'm saying to you, as I was in the conversation with Miss Henry, the caller, that I have read in the Constitution that there is a guide for when you're working out the revenue between St. Kitts and Nevis. The question you asked earlier was, what do I think the arrangement should be like? So if St. Kitts gets, if we get $10, should Nevis get 6? Should Nevis get 12? Should Nevis get 6? Should Nevis get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? And I'm saying that depends on certain factors. At that time, the Constitution did not take into consideration that there would have been the CBI. What they're trying to work out now is the CBI. How do you share the non-tax revenue? How do you share that between both islands? So it's slightly different. Your first question and what I just explained, or the conversation that I had with the caller before you, is different to what you asked earlier. It's 11:38. The phone lines remain open, but if we have no calls, we'll take a break. And have any callers? Okay, let's take this call, and then we'll take a break. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Oh, yes, Mrs. Henry, you want me to explain again, right?
Yes.
Let's start with the Constitution. It says that the proportion, whether profit or loss, for each country depends on its proportion of the total population. That part is understood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're saying it's have 100,000.
Right.
And Nevis have 25,000. They're entitled to 25%. That's an easy math.
Mm-hmm.
And to show that there is no question about it. When the Taiwanese donated money, I think it was last year?
Maybe the year before.
Nevis got 25%. Based on the population, and we have had a population census 2021. What is the proportion of Nevis?
Population of Nevis?
Yes.
The last census had it at 13,000.
Yes, 13 out of the 47.
Yeah, about 13,000.
Yeah, I think they will have almost 30%. And the government, Dr. Ju, gave to Nevis the proportion based on the Constitution. So all this go around and make an excuse for this honesty. As I said, whatever they attribute to Nevis, it isn't something that just happening, it's happening all the time. If you don't believe me, ask Wendy Allowance. He was the financial secretary. You could even ask Hillary, because she is now the present one. It is worked out because we collect the data for the Nevis finance and the St. Kitts finance. I used to do that. You put them together. Give me a chance. You put them together, right? The Ministry of Finance, who pays these joint fees, would attribute, if they have to pay for embassies, membership to international organizations, they use the same ratio. So if you pay 100,000 for UN and all the other people, then they attribute to Nevis. And when they finish putting, so Nevis expenditure plus that, against the St. Kitts one, minus that. You understand?
Mm-hmm. So you made the point earlier about the fact that the Constitution in 1983, when they were drafting it, they did not take into consideration CBI. Because you did.
Well, a lot of things it did not take into consideration. A lot of other things that happened since then.
Right.
But when they're doing the technocrats not the politicians, the technocrats. You understand?
Yes.
The accountants. They do that. I'm sure they're doing it right now. It's just that people say, oh, you know, the CBI. The CBI is government money. It's government money. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
All the non-tax and what tax. If that is the case, then all the revenue that they receive from NIBIS, because that does not fall into the joint expense, you know. All of the Hasford and the Value Mart and all of those there. Who paying in St. Kitts? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, we got to be honest. I can't see any reason why NIBIS cannot get its share. All right, they said they will take out the expenses for running the CBI. Fair enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after that, the residue is supposed to be divided according to the share in the Constitution. It's just that governments, and sometimes I think politicians are pushed by other party activists. I want to give NIBIS none. You see, the truth is they want NIBIS to separate. I come to that conclusion. They want, and it's not going to be easy for them, you know. They are begging for secession. You can tell me after all of these years, you give them something. I mean, Mr. Parry gets something. Mr. Brantley getting something. And then we come on the radio making foolish excuses. Sorry to say foolish. I mean, share the money.
All right, caller, thank you for your contribution. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation here on The Edge.
In the sun or in the rain, life's a journey, joy and pain. But NCI's here day and night, always here for you, making it right. Always here for you. Always. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you. Always. Right here to the
At National Caribbean Insurance, you are covered and secure. We're your partner, your protector, your peace of mind. So for home, for health, for life, choose NCI because we are always here for you. Always.
Always here for you. Always. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you. Always. Right here till the very end. Always here for you. Always. With NCI, you've got a friend. Always here for you. Always. Right here till the very end.
Health-wise on ZIZ TV, Mondays at 8:30 p.m. Hosted by Dr. Malik Lescott, Dr. Jolette Woodley, and Dr. Patrice Lawrence.
Back to The Edge and ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius. The phone lines remain open and we're taking your calls at 6120-1903. Let's have better the phone lines and we'll take this call. Caller, you're on the air. Good morning. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Devonne.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, I'm wondering about the sincerity of negotiating this fair share thing, huh?
The sincerity.
The sincerity.
Okay, yes.
I think you were at the last round table.
I was.
And you asked a question about that.
Yes.
And I think the Prime Minister said that there were some changes at the World Bank which sort of delayed the process, something like that.
Yeah, change in the head, I believe.
Leadership.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. As a journalist, do you accept that as a reason?
That was the reason I believe was given prior as well. So I don't know what administrative processes they have in place in terms of the change of leadership, but I recall sometime earlier that was also the case where there was a change in leadership that may have contributed to the delay in it.
But that's what I'm asking. Doesn't it seem strange that that's repeated again?
Right.
And
so
not only that, I would expect that a request like this would have been forwarded to technocrats, not so much the leadership of the World Bank, but technocrats who would have been working on these things regardless of the leadership shuffling and changing. Right? So, I don't know if Mr. Brantley accepts that as an excuse, but it really does seem strange. Okay? And that's why I question whether, in fact, like Mrs. Henry, I wouldn't go as far as Mrs. Henry and say that St. Kitts want Nevis to succeed. But I would certainly question why this process has been delayed. And I certainly would not accept that kind of excuse. Moreover, I don't think it was even necessary to go to the World Bank. That is something that could have been worked out between St. Kitts and Nevis without outside intervention, right? Or even if the outside intervention was required later, there should have been some attempt to fix these things locally before going to an outside arbitration. Okay, so I honestly feel there's some kind of deliberate delay of the process. I don't know who it actually serves, because the longer we have this thing as open-ended, there will always be friction and mistrust and tension between the two islands. And so really and truly, stop kicking the ball down the road and fix the thing. You know, and I really think there should be much more pressure exerted by whoever needs to exert that pressure, whether it's the population, whether it's the electorate in both islands, whether it's the individual institutions like the federal government and or the NIA, but or the opposition, because again we realize we find ourselves in a situation where the leader of the opposition is essentially at the mercy of the federal government, and so is afraid to really push these issues. And so there's a conflict between his opposition role and his role as Premier of Nevis, right? Which seems to satisfy both the federal government and the NIA, because the NIA gets, I guess, what it wants from the federal government, and the federal government essentially gives them what they want, give them what the federal government want to give them. So it's a real untenable situation, which I honestly feel should be fixed rather than, kicked down the road for somebody else to deal with. All right, then.
All right, caller. Thank you so much for your contribution. Let's have a look to the phone lines, and we'll take some more calls. We have a caller. All right, it's 11:50, and you are listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. I'm your host, Devonne Cornelius. Very good conversation that we're having on this topic. The fair share agreement between St. Kitts and Nevis, but I take the point, caller, that you made in terms of what may have or could have caused the delay in working out or continuing to work out the arrangement in terms of a change in the leadership. The phones remain open, and we head back by taking this caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yes, Mr. Cornelius, I'm sorry to have to come back here, but I'm going to say again, and that is all the more reason that you have to have an independent body. You're going to have people who will say nay or say yea, depending on what side it is. And we have to be reminded again that several years ago, under the Dr. Simmons administration, when the tax revenues for Nevis were such that it gave them an unexpected, you could say, landfall, or you could say, whatever the terminology is, an extra bump, that Nevis Island administration refused to send over the share to make it equitable, the fair share, according to what the Constitution said. They said, no, we are going to hold on. Well, they are the ones collecting that money, so it couldn't be, the federal government couldn't do anything about that. Fast forward, not that we necessarily have to follow that, and we can move that aside, but just bearing that in mind. Here is it, you have the CBI, and there is a discussion about this big amount of money. I agree that you have to have some kind of good sharing, but again, and it doesn't matter how it comes out, you're going to have the friction. Let us not fool ourselves. Nevis and St. Kitts will always have friction, but I think compared to other countries, even our great United States, we kind of keep it under control, and that is important. And the last thing I would say on that is that is one of the reasons with the CBI. I am sort of glad that its amount is being reduced. I said that before, and I said too much. We have had two big issues with it. One is this fair share story, which is going to continue no matter what. And the second is what we understood to be a lot of, I don't want to use the word corruption, but a lot of wrongdoings in its distribution, how it was raised, how it was spent. And so maybe it is God's doing that good things tend to happen, even when you have bad things up the hill or bad things to happen, so good things could be achieved, that we reduce the dependence on this so it's less of a problem. Thank you. But let us be sure that we are going to continue to have this friction, even whatever comes out of the IMF World Bank report. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Bye.
Carla, you're so welcome. Thank you for your contribution to the program. It's 11:54. And the phone lines remain open at 465-6120. We have a call on the line. All right, just about a few minutes left before we wrap up the conversation for today. If you're just tuning in, you are listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. We are on the topic of the fair share agreement between St. Kitts and Nevis. So send back to the phone lines and we'll take this call.
Yes, I'd just like to point out that even when we get that report from the IMF World Bank people, right, the acceptance of that report will still depend on the leadership in both islands. We don't have to accept what they say, Okay, we can always dispute it. And that is why I said it was somewhat of a cart before the horse. Let us try to come up with some arrangement first, right? And if anything, let this arrangement be, shall we say, ratified or sanctioned as fair by these independent arbiters. If you see what I mean? Ultimately, it's us who have to deal with this and who have to accept whatever arrangement is negotiated. Right, and we keep running away from it when we can ourselves do these things. We have the technical capability to do it, right? It's more a question of the will, the willingness, and the convenience, whether we really want to do it now or not. That is what I think is lacking. All right.
All right, Carla, thank you so much for your contribution. The phone lines are open and we're taking your calls 465-6120 or 465-1903. Do we have a call on the line? Oh, no caller is on the line. And yeah, you've been listening to The Edge here on ZIZ Radio 96.1 FM. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking about the fair share agreement. So we've looked at the historical tensions, the CBA program, which has been the taking the spotlight. So the role of the CBI in generating non-tax revenue and the impact this has had on the calls for a fairer distribution of funds. and then you have the constitutional provisions. So when you're talking about the distribution of funds as it relates to the we lost a caller. When you're talking about the distribution of funds as it relates to CBI, that is slightly different to what the Constitution states in terms of, in this case, 13% for NEVIS, 47% for St. Kitts, or whatever the arrangement would be like. I say it is different because of the fees that the caller mentioned earlier, the processing fees, the maintenance fees of keeping this program up and running. So it sounds easy, but I don't think it is. There are a number of things that one must take into consideration whenever you're going to try to work out this agreement. The caller made the point that the CBI revenue is declining, and the reality is this is not an industry that anybody should have thought would have been here forever, because it is unsustainable to have all of your eggs in one basket, as was the case with the CBI, where it accounted for, I believe, more than 60% of our revenue, and the focus should be to tap into other areas of the economy to expand. We have a caller. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello, good morning to you and your callers, and peace to you. I'm just listening to the conversation as it relates to the share. But the Constitution is the primary law, right? Supreme law, right?
Yes.
Right. So if the Constitution says something, until it changes, that's what the formula should be. And if we recognize and operate by that, there will be no problem, because today think it has population is bigger than Nevis, but suppose tomorrow Nevis population becomes bigger than St. Kitts. You see what we're coming from? Mm-hmm. It's the same formula. So, but the problem is, maybe let's say use the CBI. If the CBI will go to the normal channels that every fund that comes to the government goes, it might not have been an issue. However, when it comes to, let's say, the Constitution, there is no local administration for St. Kitts, unfortunately or fortunately. But there is one for Nevis. And if you look at other countries that have states, the reason why we're not seeing it as some other places like Canada, the US, and the UK, and Australia, and those countries that have whether a number of provinces or a number of states, is because it's just two. And we only see Nevis Island administration, we don't see the St. Kitts administration. So the federal government is responsible for both islands, and whatever funds it is for both islands. In some countries, the local state or whatever come up with their budget, send it to the federal government, and the federal government provide the funds to manage or to finance that state for that financial period. So I just wanted to dip into that, coming from a constitutional background, and let persons know. Let the Constitution be our guide until the Constitution is changed. We have a guide right in front of us. It's just for the persons who are operating it to operate it how it's supposed to.
All right, caller, thank you so much for your contribution. Unfortunately, we are out of time. This is a conversation that we would definitely have to continue. We are at the top of the hour. Until next time, you guys stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. You have been listening to The Edge for January 16th, 2025.